Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Build a Psychic Shield of Protection Against Toxic Energy, Blessings and Cleansing Practices for Warding Off Unhealthy Influences and Aggressive Behavior. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here because we're going to get to learn from one of the preeminent teachers on some really important subjects today. And his name is Dr. William Bloom. He's an author, he's an educator, he's a practitioner of metaphysics, shamanism, and spirituality. And he's particularly good at making deep metaphysical understandings of energy and intention into very practical recommendations for bettering our lives. In this case, creating more of a protection against those influences that really aren't here to serve us. So we're also going to be doing a program with William called Psychic Protection, Cleansing, and Blessings for Compassionate People. Very exciting course. We'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the hour. So William, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Great pleasure, Stephen. It's wonderful to be working on the Shift Network. Thank you.
Great. Well, I know that not everybody here today knows your backstory, and I think it'd be particularly interesting to hear a little bit about that, particularly as it relates to the topic of psychic protection and why that's really an important skill set for us, any of us on a spiritual path to build.
Yeah, thank you. As a child and as a teenager, I was always aware that I was sensitive to atmospheres and energies. I was a robust child, though. I had strong character, I was sporty, but nevertheless, I was feeling atmospheres and energies. And in my late teens, early 20s, I started to study and learn about healing, energy work, meditation, and began to get a handle on the fact that what I was experiencing was actually real atmospheres, real vibrations, real energies. I took a 2-year meditation retreat, came back to London after that, and because friends knew I had some awareness and skills in this area, they started to ask me for advice and to do some trainings in how best to manage yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed by the energies of other people, the attitudes of other people, and by circumstances that are very difficult. And I started running workshops, trainings in psychic protection in my early 30s in London. And most of the people who came to these trainings were inner city teachers, social workers who were burning out from the friction and overload from the work they were doing. And along with them was a whole crew of people who we might describe now as highly sensitive and also empathic. And what I began to learn, listening to them and working with them over many years, was that in actual fact, there's a cauldron of elements at work here. One of them is to do with energy, atmosphere, vibrations. The other is to do with actually the psychological framework of the person, what state they're in, and also what state they're in physiologically. Because whatever happens in your energy field that is disturbing will ripple through and have an effect on your body, have an effect on your nervous system and your endocrine system. And how you deal with it and your filters for it can be very psychological as well. So that the whole package is, there's energy in it, but there's also psychology and there's also people's physiology. And everybody I know in our field, Stephen, in the field of being interested in personal development, professional development, spiritual development, everybody I know at some time or another feels as though they need to have better filters, better protection, because they are more easily overwhelmed than they would like to be. And anybody who has a sense of being overwhelmed, even if they're managing it, they know that they're not as clear, as wise, as compassionate as they could be, because inside their skin, they've been triggered into basically a survival mode. So this work is hugely relevant for nearly everybody at some point or another in their lives.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, whether we were in the role or just more a role that is taking more incoming, if you will, and or if it's just more sensitivity that comes with practice and development to begin with. So maybe it'd be good to first of all, give us a bit of an understanding of the energetic field and how that's being impinged upon when somebody intrudes or does something that oversteps, and so then how we can start to shore up those defenses in a way that doesn't actually create separation or polarization with others.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, where I always go with people actually is that people need clear boundaries, just as a life skill. We know when we're bringing up children, one of the signs of good parenting is that we allow our little 2-year-olds to set up boundaries. No, I don't want any more food. And we respect boundaries. And people as adults who don't have clear boundaries, either because they weren't allowed them as children, or because later on in life they may be exhausted, have mental health problems, be physically unwell, or perhaps overstimulated by certain forms of meditation and practice, their boundaries begin to become porous and sponge-like. So a healthy person, like, when you look at a Child's Atlas textbook of planet Earth, there's planet Earth with its magnetosphere. And every living thing has its own magnetic field, its own energy field, its own aura, call it what you will. It's part and parcel of everybody's normal life. People use them all the time unconsciously. For example, I often say that if you're moving into a new home, one of the first things you will do before you sign the contract is you'll go there, you'll visit, and you'll have a sense of the place. And that sense of place is not to do with the visuals, though the aesthetics of it may be important, but more important than all of that is you sense whether you like the feel of it. And people have this out in landscape as well. Oh, I have a sense of the feel of this place. Or in a beautiful temple or cathedral, you have a sense of the place. And that's a totally normal thing for everybody. Atheist, metaphysician, go into a cathedral and go, well, this is beautiful. And it's a sensation. Along with that, everybody, whether they know it or not, is they're putting out a vibration. When you have an emotion, when you think something, there's a vibration that resonates out from you. And that can be felt by other people. So I think most of us know what it's like if a member of our family comes home in a bad mood. You can feel it at the front door before they actually come in the house. And most people also know what it's like to work in an organization where if the boss is in a bad mood, there's an atmosphere through a kind of social contagion, a kind of energetic contagion that ripples through the building, through the organization. You can see this so clearly in schools and hospitals. So what happens for people is, there they are, they should have a healthy energy field, it should be robust, like vital, but they're slightly exhausted or they don't have clear boundaries, and something comes along, we'll just call it a negative vibration. Just somebody has done something that's negative and spiky that touches their energy field, their aura, their magnetic field. It ripples almost like lightning through the field, through the energy field, into the body. And the nervous system senses it. And the nervous system then, in harmony with the endocrine system, your hormonal system, creates a response that is one of, hello, I'm being threatened. Therefore, I will start to pump out some adrenaline and cortisol in order to get myself into a state where I can respond appropriately. that experience of adrenaline and cortisol being triggered inside the body is very unpleasant. It creates some tension, sweating, nausea, which then your mind brain interprets in a way that causes panic. So you can see here immediately, you've got the three things at work. You've got something negative comes into your field. It ripples through into your body. Your nervous system responds. There's a physiological response that creates the hormones of adrenaline, cortisol, flight, fight, survival. And your mind, your psyche, then goes into some form of panic. So we've got a little stew here of dynamics. And this is what I'm describing here is, over the decades that I've been teaching this, in many, many situations, especially with folk who don't believe or accept that there's a metaphysical dimension, when I describe it like that, without exception, everybody goes, oh yeah, I have that kind of experience. What can I do to help myself? What can I do to help myself? That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And so where in that whole sequence of things is it best to intervene? It sounds like the best intervention is making sure you're shored up your energy field before the situation occurs.
You're right. So if in a longer training, one of the things I will always be saying to folk is make sure you're healthy, make sure you're vital, because the greatest protection and boundary you can have comes from being healthy, comes from being toned and vital and psychologically stable. So you just have a healthy aura. It just kind of it's a kind of gentle radiation, and that gives you a solidity and a center. But we're all human, aren't we? And there's nobody I know who manages to sustain that. There's some people I know who managed to sustain it publicly, but when they get home, they crash. And they may have some internal psychological things going on, of a little bit of self-pity and the normal stuff that everybody does. Mm-hmm. So my experience is that everybody has these experiences in one way or another. But you're right, stay healthy. In my experience, the most important first strategy to have, and we'll use that in an exercise in a little while, is to actually withdraw your focus from whatever it is that's causing you trouble. So that might be a family member, it might be a colleague, it might be something on a screen, it might be something out in the world, it might be something out in the street. The first strategy, and this is also the strategy you'll find in good martial arts, is you withdraw your attention from that which is out there and come home. And that means at a psychological level, you're filtering out that which is stimulating you. You're beginning, and more than that, at a physiological level, if you bring your focus back to your own body, like literally go, I'm not, I'm pretending you're not there. Bring your focus back to your own body. Then inside your own physiology, your nervous system and your endocrine system go, okay, I'm now only being stimulated by my mind that is focused on me. I'm not being stimulated by the threat. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very crucial part of healthy work. And I want to be certain that I've explained it clearly and not in a way that's complicated. So I'm going to repeat myself a bit here. There's an external threat, ignore it, bring your awareness back to your own body and go, hello, body, I'm here, and I'm the one managing myself. And I'm temporarily, just for the moment, I'm going to ignore the threat that's out there. And then from that place of being at home in your own vehicle, it's common to a lot of meditation traditions. Come home to your body, come home to your center. Withdraw your attention from external stimulation. Because if there's somebody out there who's provocative, there's a friend, a child, an enemy having a go at you, and you feel that they're like triggering some arousals in you, the first thing you have to do is ignore them.
Hmm.
Ignore them first internally. You don't have the body language of ignoring them, because they, stay looking at them, stay present to them, because it's highly provocative if they think you're withdrawing your attention from them. But just bring your focus back to yourself.
It's a very, very interesting advice. I mean, it runs counter to our natural impulse. If there's a perceived threat, then our attention goes all out there. And so what happens, maybe you share a little bit more about what happens when our attention goes entirely on them or the situation. Well, how is that actually undermining our own energy field?
Well, all of us who have been parents, all of us who've ever been in an emotional relationship, we will know that the moment we connect with the person who's provoking us, we create a loop of attitude and a loop of energy. Mm. It just starts to loop in a negative way. And it's a huge lesson for everybody in relationship to go, okay, when there's negative energy coming at me from my partner, from my children, from my parents, wherever it's coming from, colleagues, okay, I'm just going to separate myself from it. When I was working in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, when there was warfare there, one of the things I did was I trained all the trainers who were working in the UK, we call it social security. It's the places where you hand out money to those who do not have a job. Well, I don't know what that's called in America.
Welfare, often.
Welfare, yeah. So these were people who are on the front line of looking after welfare claimants in the middle of a kind of ongoing, very violent situation. And I thought when I went in there to do the training, they would be highly suspicious of anything that had the slightest tone of, energy work. It sounded a bit flaky to them. But when they learned to just bring their focus back to themselves instead of be attentive and in relationship with the claimant, who was quite often in distress, quite often aggressive, if they just blocked them off, came home to themselves, they were able to stay centered. They were able to stay dignified. And from that point of center and being dignified, they were much better able to actually manage the person. And if you talk to school teachers, my daughter's a teacher, for example, of young children, 5 to 11-year-olds, and she knows 100% that if there's a child in the class who's provocative and she gets triggered by it, that's going to begin a loop with the child that will just be quite destructive for the situation. And she needs to just disengage from the child, make sure she's centered and at ease, and then deal with the child. So none of what I'm saying is to suggest that you cut off from the person and don't stay in relationship with them. What I'm saying is, as a temporary part of your strategy, disengage, come home, look after yourself, make sure you are centered, present, and then from that place of some greater stability within yourself, work at how best to manage the difficult situation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And how does this change if it's really plugging a particular trauma or something in your history that sort of it evokes, like, oh, this is a powerful male who's attacking me, and you're a woman that has been traumatized by that. So like, how do you work with then the trauma part of what's getting activated in the situation?
That's a very important question for every individual, to be quite careful and reflective about how they manage this, because the strategies which I'm sharing with you in this conversation are only part of a jigsaw of how someone will be able to heal themselves from historical trauma. So in direct response to your question, it would be yes, separate yourself off from the source, the aggressor, and recognize also the structure of the way you were abused. Set up a boundary, psychological boundary between you and where the trauma came from. Look after yourself, and then do the healing and therapeutic work that's required to heal trauma. I mean, I've trained people who work with victims of torture, and we're talking here about victims who their healing journey may be several years, and it will be an array of strategies that will help them, and clear boundaries is one of them. It's not the magic wand that will fix everything, but it's definitely one of them.
So it sounds like you need to give yourself extra permission, that first withdrawal impulse before you re-engage, that you're sort of presencing that you might need to be offline from that stimulation for a while to sort of work with what's emerging.
100%. But we're talking here about trauma healing. And what I started in the beginning of this conversation, we're talking about just everyday life.
Everyday life, yeah.
Dealing with people who piss you off.
So let's go back to the boundary conversation and sort of how to sort of establish that from I think people have a sense of like, what a boundary is, but like to reestablish a boundary or reassert a boundary or to create some sort of energetic barrier. I wonder, how do you do that as a practice?
There are dozens of different practices that will set up a boundary. In this particular conversation, what I'm going to suggest to you is what I call the lead wall. And you might be this particular practice emerged. I had been trained in and have been teaching all kinds of different boundary situations, but my partner and I, my wife and I, decades ago, we were in a situation where we had to share quite a small bed, and there was nowhere else to go in the apartment, and her monthly rhythm was quite extreme at the time. And so there were periods for a week every month where she was vulnerable and needed care and easily triggered, but we were still sleeping in the same bed. And so we knew that we needed some kind of barrier between us. And the lead wall became a very effective boundary between us so that she could sleep and I could sleep. And this particular strategy is one that's used by many people in other situations, but I just thought I'd share with you my own personal. It's effective, and I'll talk you through it before we actually do it. Again, the core issue is imagine there's the provocateur, whoever it is who triggers you. You withdraw your attention from that person, from the situation. It's not there. And then from a place that you may be quite fragile, wobbly, you go, okay, here's my body, here I am. I know that the very nature of Gaia, Earth, is supportive to me. Just an awareness that Gaia supports me. There's a good vibe comes out of Gaia into my body. And it's not a matter of, so a lot of practices where you kind of drop your energy down into the earth. This is not that. It's just be very open and allow yourself to feel supported by Gaia, by Earth. At the same time, know that the sun, which is always shining, supports you. And just allow it to come to you. And here comes the important bit. This is the crucial bit of the exercise. The crucial bit of the exercise is from deep in your gut, from your torso, you assert to yourself in the first place, this is my space. This is my space. Because if you don't know and believe it yourself, nothing out there is going to believe it. So it's this is my space, clearly asserted, and then sense, feel, experience, picture this thick, maybe a meter thick, several feet thick, lead wall that sets up a barrier. This is my space, lead wall. Anything out there, any vibe out there, is just going to bounce off it. And you can imagine in a welfare office where you've got this queue of maybe a dozen very difficult people coming at you. This is a hugely effective strategy. My space, lead wall. Your vibe is not coming through to me. I'm okay. And as I'm okay, I can deal with you with dignity and kindness. And that's the beginning of this strategy. Repetition makes it ever more effective. And I would say that it's most difficult for a parent to do with a young child who's difficult, in my experience. Because parents are hooked into, I need to do something, or my dignity is being affronted by this child that's not respecting me, you know? And it's just, take no notice, set up the wall, freeze them out. Mm. And then from that space, go, okay, I wonder what the best strategy is for actually dealing with this.
Curious about the lead aspect of it, sort of like, we don't usually construct walls out of lead. Like, why use lead as the sort of the descriptor for the wall?
Because the lead used to be used as in nuclear reactors to contain the radiation.
Gotcha.
I suppose it would work with titanium or gold or concrete. This is the other thing about this kind of work, is that I never want anybody saying, oh, William says you need to do it precisely like this. What I really want is for folk, if they train with me, to go, okay, I'm beginning to get the sense of come home, set a boundary, believe this is my space. What imagery works best for me? What sensation works best for me? William's suggesting a 3-foot thick lead wall. Okay, that maybe that works, but maybe, and if people do longer programs with me, I give them alternatives that they can put into action to help them. The other thing I want to drop in here that's crucial, actually, for the long term, is that a connection with Mother Nature, with Earth, with the land, with water, air, clouds, everything beautiful in nature, a connection with Mother Nature, and a connection with, I'll use the word source, for want of another word. The connection with source is also crucial here, because that's where you'll be fueled, where you'll get the energy to do this work and sustain it. So the person who's saying, this is my space, here's my boundary, is simultaneously feeling the support of source and nature, Mother Nature, because Mother Nature, source, is benevolent and wants us to grow and develop healthily and to be supported.
Well, I know you were going to actually guide us in this process of establishing a lead wall. And do we begin with focusing on a situation where we have felt that intrusion or some sort of toxic energy? Or
well, let me lead it now for a few minutes,
okay,
and then so it's the kind of thing is easiest to do with your eyes shut, but don't close your eyes if that is difficult for you. So the first thing I want you to do is just to allow yourself to drop down into your body. So what you're looking for in your body is that you just let it be comfortable. Comfortable like you're sitting in your favorite armchair or sofa at home, or comfortable like you're sitting at a cafe, people watching, or out in nature, sitting under a tree, watching the clouds. Just let your body drop down into that space. And just know that beneath you and around you, there's Mother Nature, Gaia, Earth. She has a vibe, an energy, a harmonic that's good for you. That's why people like to be in nature, why people like flowers, why they like animals, looking at the sky, looking at clouds. It's good for people. It's good for us. And just let that feeling come to you. And know also that just because you're alive, Source, God, Goddess, the great mystery, whatever you call it, always there, supporting you. Just allow that feeling of it being there just come to you. There you are in your body with Mother Nature, with Source. And out there, there's something that is negative and provokes you, but you're not going to take any notice of it. I've named it, which means you're going to think about it a bit. But what I really want you to do is just be in your body, at home in your body. And then from your stomach, from your chest, from your gut, from your heart, deep inside you, I want you to be feeling and sensing and asserting for yourself, this is your space, my space. Extending several feet in front of you. This is my space. And maybe, if it feels appropriate, let your hands come up as if creating a boundary. This is my space. This is my space. This is my space. And at the same time now, just imagine the sense that there is a thick wall, lead wall, thick lead wall, and outside vibrations cannot get through it. You don't even notice outside vibrations. There's my space, lead wall. On the other side of it is whatever it is that might be provoking you. But it's just on the outside of the lead wall, and nothing from it can come through to you. And you are happy, comfortable in your body, in your space. This is the most important thing. You don't get into any kind of dialogue or communication with whatever the provocateur is, whatever was triggering you. Just push it away. This is my space. This is my space. This is my space. Take a soft, slow, quiet breath down into your stomach. And then from this space, you can begin to contemplate, I wonder what the best way of dealing with this situation actually is. What do I need to do with this provocation? Walk away? Ignore it? Maybe it needs some care? It will depend on the situation. So there you are, supported by Mother Nature, supported by Source. Healthy for you to have clear boundaries. healthy for you to know what your space is. And of course, practice, repetition is kind of essential. You can do this little exercise lying in bed, on a bus or train, traveling. Just practice it. The more you practice it, the more effective it becomes. Okay. Well, that's the basic exercise, Stephen. Makes sense.
Super helpful. Is that something that you should, when you're in a chronic situation, let's say there's a boss at work who's consistently triggering for you, should you sort of build that into sort of a daily practice so you're building reservoirs of capacity each time you enter into a situation?
100%. 100%. Because the repetition of it means that you develop the muscles, the practice of being able to stay centered and have clear boundaries. But then you actually have to engage with the situation itself. The difficult boss, the difficult colleague needs to be talked to, needs to be managed. You know, there are decisions to be made. And you know, I used to teach in university. And one of the things I taught was psychological problems in international politics. And one of the things that kept cropping up there was that in crisis situations, people who were triggered, like policymakers, politicians, senior politicians who were triggered by the circumstances, didn't think clearly. So this notion of clear boundaries, clear space, stay centered behind your boundaries, and then from that place of center, you can think much more clearly. And, you know, I would hope that people would be able to be more loving and more compassionate from that place of center too. But it is practice. And we all know in our world that personal development takes a bit of practice. There are waves of grace, but it takes a bit of practice as well.
What I heard earlier was when you do notice you're getting triggered, so if the lead wall you didn't cultivate sufficient, that you're still getting triggered in the moment, you bring your awareness back to yourself. You find it's important sometimes to sort of recognize the depth of the trigger, is that you just call a time out, because you cautioned against sort of overtly withdrawing your attention from somebody.
Yeah. 100%, you're spot on here. For example, if people are experiencing this with an ex-partner, they will have made love and have certain energetic connections that come from having made love together. And, you know, if you've been in a relationship for a decade and you come out of that, then there are all these energetic connections, and just simply setting up the lead wall is not going to deal with the deeper emotional and energetic attachments you have with that person. And, you know, there are also attachments with people that come from karma, ancestry, family links, the constellation of relationships you have. So we're talking here about a strategy and a set of strategies that need to be in your toolbox of life skills.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what we've got here with psychic protection and being able to bless the situation, which is also, you know, the other face of all this work, is life skills that everybody should have. You know, historically, they tended to belong to clergy, priestesses, priests, wizards, witches, shamans, right? And I think one of the things that's happening in our culture and our age is that everybody's getting to own those strategies, that these spiritual strategies are stuff that everybody needs, and they're life skills, and they need to be in everybody's toolbox.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about the blessing aspect of this, because I think that, you know, sometimes that the concept of protection can kind of lead into sort of a there's like a subtle judgment or separating, or that we project our
Yeah.
own negativity into this situation, whereas it sounds like blessing is a good way to unwind anything that we might
Oh,
see negatively about the situation too.
100%. You can see me big smile now, right? Because for me, the most effective protection anybody can have is they go into a situation just radiating love and compassion.
Hmm.
Just wow, and it's genuine. It's authentic. It's an authentic, embodied, and people can only do that if they also have a connection with Source and Mother Nature. So they're fueled. They get their energy from Mother Nature, and Source, so they're not on their own. Nobody does this on their own, and they go into a situation with "I love you." I know. Maybe not so good to actually say it out loud if you've got a difficult boss, difficult colleague, but it's a vibe. It's a vibe, and that radiation from you just absolutely will block out any negative stuff coming to you, and will also be good for the people who may be having the difficult feelings towards you. 100%. So in the course we're about to describe, it's absolutely crucial that there's a kind of really benevolent feedback circle of, okay, the more protected you are, the more centered you are, the more you can be a blessing and the more you can be connected. The more you're connected to Source, the more you can be a blessing, the more centered you can be, the more protected you are.
I like those positive feedback loop there.
Yeah.
So maybe share a little bit more. I know you're going to do more in the course coming up, but the actual act of blessing, so you can feel the love and kind of radiate that. What do you actually, as a practice, how do you shift your relationship with what might be perceived as somebody attacking you or criticizing you?
Well,
Blessing.
listen, number one, you've got to be careful with your body language. Because if your body language looks, I hosted a program in a church for a decade or so, and I was continually getting into trouble because when people came up to complain to me about what was going on, I would always put on this kind of kind smile and love them, and they would feel patronized and that I was being passive aggressive towards them. So you just need to be very careful about your body language with this kind of thing. So don't give them a loving smile. But what you do is you just, from a quiet place, it's what in great spiritual service is called co-presence. It's just you are an embodied chalice for Source, for Mother Nature. You have a good vibe, you have a loving vibe, and it just radiates from you. That is the very best protection you can do, and it's also actually, for me, it's the greatest blessing you can do. There are other forms of blessing where you bless with your hands or you send a particular blessing. The greatest blessing we can do is be able to walk into a room, into a situation, and your whole body is an incarnate, embodied vehicle, vessel for Source to just be present. And that then manifests in a way that's invisible, but silently, quietly, calmly, incredibly blessing to everything around you.
Beautifully described.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you want from someone who's caring for you. Actually, you want that vibe, and where I first met it at its very best. My very first jobs were as a kind of, I was 18 working in a publishing house in central London, and there was a lot of people in it. It was always busy, and there was one woman who used to come with a tea trolley some decades ago, somebody would come around with a tea trolley delivering tea to the desks. And this woman who was doing it had been through the war, had seen some terrible things, but had a faith and had a connection with Source. And her whole vibe was just profoundly loving. And I went, okay, there's a model, tea lady.
Well, I think we can all resonate with what the picture you're painting of where we want to, how we want to engage the world. And I think it's so beautiful, the practices that you've developed that really help us cultivate those subtle levels of discernment and internal work that allow that to happen. So let's talk more explicitly about your course, which I think is such a beautiful offering for us, each of us, to take in and really develop these practices so we have that kind of purity of energy that can really bless and heal so many situations, including our own history. So you can find all the details at toxicenergyprotection.com, toxicenergyprotection.com. It's going to be a 7-module program with 4 live Q&A sessions. And there are no prerequisites for this. It's really just if you feel the recognition that you're in your life, there are times that you are getting activated, not quite sure how to navigate situations where there are energies coming at you that you don't know how to work with, or you just see that you can become more radiant in your daily life. And William's really going to distill many decades of practice into a very practical set of programs for you. So William, I'd love for you to share in your own words about the program, first on the high level, and then I can read out the module titles so you give us a preview of what's coming in each.
What I want everyone to get from this program is some deep understanding and actual experience of the practices that are necessary for all my learners to know how they can set clear boundaries, but at the same time understand the psychological, physiological, energetic stuff that's going on at the same time. So set clear boundaries, understand what's coming in that they have to deal with, and absolutely get that at the same time as we learn how to set these boundaries and understand the different energies, we also need, for 100% safety, we need to be fully connected to Source and Mother Nature. And I want people to get the concepts and strategies where they themselves can more easily access and feel the way they're connected to Source and Mother Nature, embody that, incarnate it, land it in their bodies, learn how to calm their psychology, learn how to calm their physiology, and then be a blessing. And at the same time, we'll work with how you actually then use that in particular situations to create a good atmosphere in a home, less an object, less a space, less a situation. And, you know, the greatest models for this kind of work I've met are people who are naturally benevolent presences and healers and carers and friends. And just their sheer presence is something that we know is a blessing. And I want to give everybody the skills to develop that in themselves. And if you already have that ambience, that attitude yourself, I want to provide an oasis for you to deepen and better understand that approach.
Module 1 is called Become Strong and Stable as You Achieve Deep Connection with Benevolent Forces for True Psychic Protection.
So this is the opening module, and in it I'll explain the core foundations of psychic protection and blessing. And I want people in particular to understand that psychic protection is actually an inner experience of strength, optimism, and peace. And this then cascades, flows through your nervous and endocrine systems, and it helps to build and sustain your own resilience, your own physical health, and support your mental well-being.
Module 2, manage your internal energy to become an empowered guardian of your energetic safety and build your inner strength.
In this, the second session, I'm going to share with you crucial secrets and practices of internal energy management. That's how to manage the energies within yourself, sometimes called internal martial arts. And these are practices that will absolutely reinforce your core strength. And as your core strength becomes more solid, more resilient, this will support a confidence and a stability in both your psychological and your psychic self, internal martial arts.
And at this point in the course, we'll have our first live Q&A session. You'll have an opportunity to ask your questions and have them answered live. Module 3, psychic protection practices to set clear boundaries for feeling calm, confident, and peaceful, even in high conflict situations.
All right, so we've done the lead wall, but in this particular session, the third session, I'm going to share with you maybe a dozen different strategies. Some of them very well known for setting up psychic protection. And you'll be able to discover in this third session which are the ones you instinctively feel work best for you. And you'll be able to explore how you can put them into operation in circumstances that might usually challenge you. Be an interesting session because there's some diverse ways of doing this kind of work.
Module 4, bring positive psychic energy to all of life's events by cleansing and blessing places, people, and objects.
So in this session, we're beginning to radiate the stuff that we're more confident and stronger about. So we expand their energetic protection so that it radiates to benefit, to be a blessing to the world around you. And this means you're going to be experiencing in this session that you have an innate, a natural ability to cleanse and bless, which means that you can move on negative energies from places and objects so that they're refreshed and kind of glow like new. And this work of being able to bless will build a new confidence in you and promote physical, emotional, and spiritual healing as well. And it will help move on any negative emotions and ancient traumas you may be carrying, or definitely help in that direction.
At this point in the course, you'll have another opportunity to have your questions answered in a live Q&A session. Module 5, cultivate your sacred presence to radiate safety, healing, and encouragement to those around you.
Well, this is what Stephen and I were talking about earlier. This is from all the work we've done in the previous sessions. We're now able to experience how just being you, able to manage your psychology, your physiology, your energy, you can just be benevolent, compassionate, connected, stable presence for those around you. Real blessing, real service to the world.
Module 6, blessings and energetic first aid practices to help you transform your most challenging psychic crises.
All right, so this is what I call the health and safety session. We're dealing with difficult situations, difficult circumstances, negative energies, and sometimes there are difficult, very difficult scenarios that arise that to do with very negative energy and maybe to do with mental health issues. And in this field, you need to be aware of them in order to know how to manage them if they do arise. So this, but you remember, we've now done 5 sessions of building up your energy, building up your connection. Now we're going, okay, let's just have a look at some of the problems we may encounter that we may have to manage. And this is how we do it. And we'll be able to manage these difficult situations with some confidence and some grace and some love.
At this stage of the course, you'll get another chance to have your questions answered during this live Q&A session. And then finally, Module 7, harness your new skills and practices to become a blessed agent for world peace, harmony, and compassion.
All right, this last module is kind of a celebratory one. I'm going to introduce another perspective in which will be part of the thread through the previous 6 sessions, which is world events create fields of energy, just as families do and places do. So one of the things that we can do now that we have this strong center, clear boundaries, connected, able to bless, able to cleanse, we'll learn in this session, this celebration, how we can apply all that knowledge and all those practices so that we can be of greater service to the whole of our planet and safeguard, protect, bless the world. It will be last session will be how we can be a blessing to the world in general.
We finish this journey together with a final live Q&A session. You'll get the opportunity to ask any questions that have come up during the course. Well, what a beautiful offering, and so practical as well, William. So I'll share a little bit more about this. You're going to get the 7 90-minute pre-recorded modules and 4 live Q&A sessions with William. You'll also get word-for-word transcripts of modules to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises for home. There's a community to support you and deepen your experience. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses that enhance your journey as well. There's a video dialogue with William and Puma Freddy Quispe Singona. That's called The Shamanic Tradition of the Andes. Puma is awesome. I think you'll really be blessed to participate in that dialogue. And then there's a PDF guide from William and Marco Pogasnik, Earth Energies, Ley Lines, and Ecology. And there's also a PDF excerpt from William Bloom's first book, Feeling Safe. It's called Managing Your Internal Chemistry. William, you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've got a couple of books that can absolutely focus on the whole area that we're talking about in this session. One of them is a book called Psychic Protection, and the other one is Feeling Safe. And what we've done here is I've taken out one complete chapter from Feeling Safe. And this chapter is a very clear description of how to self-manage your nervous system and endocrine system, your body, when you're sensing that there's some kind of negative energy coming at you, or there's some kind of, or you're in circumstances that you find very difficult. So it links completely to everything Stephen and I have been talking about, and is also part of the core teaching for the 7 sessions.
That's a great extra bonus by itself. And then I also want to draw attention to one more bonus. It's called Create a Life of Well-Being, Prosperity, and Fulfillment, the Principles of Manifestation, Magnetic Attraction, and Sympathetic Magic. There's a video teaching from William. That's your special bonus you get when you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. William, you want to share a little bit more about Create a Life of Well-Being, Prosperity, and Fulfillment?
Yeah, this is this is an area which has been quite problematic, I think, over the last few decades in the world of metaphysics. This notion you create your own reality, manifestation, all that kind of stuff. And this is a very realistic look at what it is we can actually manifest and create in a way that's of service to our own spiritual development and of service to the world around us. So it's instead of the you can get your perfect partner in 10 minutes, or you can make a quick buck in half an hour. It's hey, hang on a moment, guys. We're in the world of spiritual development, which is about more compassion, more connection, more consciousness, more service to others. And within that context, there are certain dynamics to do with karma, collective energy, and our soul's purpose, and how within that kaleidoscope of factors, we do attract what we create. And you need to be realistic, because You can hear Stephen already. I'm off on one because let me just say one thing finally about this last one. We're like icebergs. You know, our consciousness is the very tip of the iceberg, and when you're doing prosperity and manifestation work, the top of the iceberg makes all the noise. I want this. I'm creating this. I'm affirming this. But beneath it is this whole history of who we are. Our childhood, our friends, our family, our DNA, our ancestry. And that is also resonating to create our lives.
Well, that's a beautiful extra bonus. And I love the sophistication and nuance that you bring to these important, deep spiritual conversations. So we've kept the investment in William's course very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $109, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $297. The course is going to begin Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. The live Q&A sessions run Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and will be recorded. So even if you're not able to make the live times, you can still get the full value from recordings. And I particularly encourage you to go to the page and read through some of the testimonials. William has left a lot of people so much happier, more fulfilled, and really blessed by his work and his teaching over the years. So there's a lot of great testimonials about the power of his teaching and his work and his practices that really give you a sense for how this can benefit your life. And you're going to get that special bonus, which is create a life of well-being, prosperity, and fulfillment with the principles of manifestation, magnetic attraction, and sympathetic magic. So, William, really, you're just always such a wise man, and such a blessing to be around. So, thank you for your sharing here today. And anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering going into the full program with you?
Yeah, you know, I said earlier, and I just want to repeat it. I think what we're sharing in this program is a set of life skills that everybody should have in their toolbox. You know, if everybody knew how to create clear boundaries, connect, be a blessing, and knew how to self-manage to do that, and knew how to be a kind and compassionate co-presence, just there for people when needed. These are basic life skills. We can't do them all the time. We're human, but they are the kind of things we find that great therapists and healers and just really nice people have them instinctively. And I just want to make sure in this program that everybody knows about them and knows how to practice them, put them into practice. It's good for us. I'm still practicing and learning about them all the time. And I know that they really help.
Well, it's really clear that your intention is so sincere to help people with these really important skills. So thank you for putting together this program, and thank you for your wisdom that you've shared today. And again, all those who are out there, if you would like to go further into William's deep wisdom, you can do so in the Psychic Protection, Cleansing, and Blessings for Compassionate People course. And if you sign up right away, you'll get that special bonus on Create a Life of Well-Being, Prosperity, and Fulfillment with the Principles of Manifestation, Magnetic Attraction, and Sympathetic Magic. So thank you all. Many blessings.